Hi gentlemen, Mike Weishar here. It is November 28th, 2022. Welcome to our fourth video in our Consultants in Carhartts Drinking Coffee video series. Today I'd like to talk about getting back to the basics. If a organization calls you, or maybe a department inside your organization calls you and says, hey, we've got a project, we're a couple of months, 3-4 months in, we're starting to struggle, we're hoping you can come and give us a hand. What would you do? Where would you start? And how do you implement lean correctly to have the highest amount of impact? We've got some real experience around that now, so I wanted to share that with you guys today. I think, too often people want to focus on the tools of lean and not the methodologies and philosophies or the path you have to take to get to the effective use of those tools. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so let's just dive right in. You guys remember the lean house from my previous video. So one of the things we talked about in the lean house was that tension between just-in-time and Jidoka, the two pillars of lean. So just-in-time brings issues to the surface so that we can see them, and Jidoka allows us to address those issues, come back to just-in-time, improve the processes, and become more just-in-time is really the idea, which again exposes new issues that Jidoka catches and addresses. And that cycle keeps moving, and that's where lean lives. It lives in the tension between those two processes. If you'd like to get more detail on that, you can go back and watch the previous video that I sent out. And I'll be sending some videos out subsequent to this one that really describe that more. Okay, but for our small group, let's go back to the basics for a minute. So workflow and information flow are the two paths that I'm going to focus on if I first come to a project that's in trouble. And it doesn't matter how big. We're talking 20 million to 120 million or 400 million. It doesn't matter, right? So those are the things we'll focus on for the first few weeks, because once we get on top of these, then we'll start to introduce some of the other lean processes that'll get us even further down the path. But one step at a time. Where do you focus? What do you get first? Okay, so in workflow, what we're going to focus on is that all work on site is planned and that all planned work is monitored. All right? And then in information flow, we're going to make sure that all information is identified. We understand what all the information required is. And then we're going to monitor all of that information. So you'll notice that monitoring becomes a key part of each of those processes. Okay, so let's dive into them just a little bit. The general superintendent is going to own the phase planning, the 6-week look ahead, and the tick list, people are calling it now. So that's tasks, issues, and constraints all in one list. Normally a flip chart, but these are the tools that the general super will use to manage workflow when we first come out to a job site. And one of the main philosophies we'll focus on in the beginning is collaboration. So we're going to collaborate. Number one, all work is planned. So if a general super or any other superintendent were to walk on site and look, all of the work that they see being performed is the work that's on that 6-week look ahead or on that tick list. If they see anything else happening on site, then it's unplanned work. Okay? We're going to make sure that when we do plan, we have all the right stakeholders. So if we're going to go out and look at something, we're going to make sure that we've got all the people that would be involved in that, including the trades, any engineers, architects, consultants of any kind, the contractor, whoever should be there looking at that process. We're all going to stand there and look at it together, decide if we have all the right information and tools and everything that we need to perform that process, and then we'll go back to the job trailer or big room and plan it. Excuse me. We're going to use Genchi Genbutsu with all of our planning. Genchi Genbutsu simply means we're going to go out, yes, with all the stakeholders, but we're also going to have all the right planning. We'll have our usually an iPad nowadays with all of our plans and all of our specifications. When we go to the job site and we ask a question, we should be able to have at least all the information that we currently have with us to be able to understand what it is we're doing and make sure that we're planning correctly. We're going to plan in the proper detail. That's something that takes a bit to learn. So there's always an argument when I get to job sites over what kind of information is supposed to be on the Post-its. The information that we've found that needs to be on the Post-its is very simple. It's the information I need to be able to monitor progress. Okay, so the information that I or my team needs to monitor progress. So what does that mean? Well, if just recently we had broken a job into zones, a pretty big building, broke it into zones, and we were feeling pretty good about that. We had the right detail on the Post-its. We said, here's the people that are going to be working in this zone. And there were about 100 rooms in that zone. But what happened is 5 different trades showed up in the same room in the science lab. They all showed up in the science lab at the same time, right? And of course, then everybody's mad, who's going to stay, who's going to go, and it was a terrible waste of time, right? But what it was a real learning experience. We realized, no, wait a second, that's not the right amount of detail. If we're going to monitor progress and stop the line, and I'll cover those here in a moment, if we're going to do these 2 things, then our detail has to support that. So let's cover that for a moment. Monitoring progress says this. Now, you guys know the Toyota factory, right? If anything happens in the factory that is not supposed to happen, all workers inside the factory are standing next to a cord like a city bus. You just pull the cord and it stops the line, right? So any problem stops the line and everybody comes running. So in healthcare, manufacturing, construction, distribution, doesn't matter what the industry is, you have to have that visual management, that judoka, that allows us to stop the line. Now, we still have to stop the line, but first you need the information to be able to stop the line, right? You guys got that. So monitoring progress says this. If I know exactly when I go out at 6 o'clock in the morning where my trade is starting, then I can go out 2 hours later and say, yep, that trade's got 2 hours of work done, right? If I understand where they're starting, then I can monitor progress. I can see if they're on track to get done the job they're going to get done. So the first thing I'll always check, if I'm the contractor, the superintendent, first thing I'm always going to check is, are all the trades where they're supposed to be first thing this morning? So number 1, right? Number 2, do I or one of my people understand precisely where they're starting so that I can go monitor progress every 2 hours? I can go out and make sure they're on track. If they're not on track at any time, then I pull the cord. I stop the line. And that means we have to have a good escalation process in place, right? So we have to be able to go out and address the issue immediately. So if I catch any issue first thing in the morning, we're still going to meet our end of the day goal, right? But if we're doing traditional contracting, traditional construction, we will report at the end of the day whether or not we made it. Nobody goes out and manages and monitors during the day, much less stops the line and escalates, right? Okay, so let's move on. The project manager owns the information flow, right? So the information flow, the workflow is owned by the general superintendent. Information flow is owned by the project manager. They are the primary dyad on the team, and we'll cover what that means later. I know I've mentioned it in earlier videos. The tools they will use are the request for information, change orders, supplemental instructions, field reviews, etc. Those are the standard tools on a construction site, right? But the new one is the issues log. Now I'm gonna do another video later this week that talks about what the issues log is and the things that we've learned over the last couple of years about managing that process correctly. So the key to the information flow working correctly when we first get to a job site is, again, collaboration, just like up on the task flow. But we need all the information to be visible. So one of the things that we discovered right away is a lot of information is invisible. What submittals still need to be processed? Well, we don't really know. We don't really have a process to manage that. How about shop drawings? Do we know who's got the shop drawings? Who's going to be returning them? When they're going to return them? Do we understand the lead times of the materials that people are going to be using to build whatever their part of the process is, so that we are sure that our submittals and our shop drawings and any other information that we need from them is within that lead time, etc. So is it visible is one of the key things. And the other one is hidden stoppages. So we're going to talk about hidden stoppages on another video. I've got a list here. You can go ahead and do a screenshot and see what some of the examples are, but I'll do a separate video to cover what hidden shortages are. These are key. This is something that I found, we've sort of been calling it the vortex on the job, just the spinning vortex where issues and problems and disagreements and things go. It's where things go and disappear for long periods of time until they stop the work. And suddenly they become very visible again. So we're going to talk about that more later. But once we understand what hidden stoppages are and what issues are, then we're going to start managing ball and court And through ball and court, we're going to monitor progress. And through monitoring progress, again, we're going to stop the line and escalate. So all of this process has to be working through a good, solid escalation process developed right when we get to the job site, because a lot of key people are going to be involved in that. Architects, engineers, the contractor, and the owners. And this is a process that happens very quickly. So once I understand what all the issues are and they're visible, right, at the project management level, then I'll learn how to manage ball and court. And we use the issues log to manage ball and court. And we start measuring things. All information now is measured in minutes and days. No more weeks and months. Minutes and days. Our standard RFIs turn around in about 2 hours. The only reason that it's clear up at the 2-hour mark is because some RFIs require us to go back and run some numbers and do some new designing or run some engineering numbers, etc., to make sure that any solution that we've come up with on the job is a real solution, that it's actually going to work. All right? So that keeps that process up around 2 hours. But in this process, on every job we've gone to now, and it's every single one, there is no exception, they have somewhere between 30, 40, 50 open RFIs at any given moment, lots of change orders that are sitting there for weeks and months, always, weeks and months, it's crazy, supplemental instructions that are unclear, and field reviews that are unaddressed, right? It's just really common. I'm not beating anybody up because it happens on every single job, and it's really where we start from. And when we begin to put this process in place, after about 3-4 weeks, we'll be down to 3 to 5 open RFIs and almost no other issues remaining. A lot of times we'll have some big problems to solve with the change order process. Once money's involved, it gets a little bit more difficult to solve in some of these bigger cases, but we get them solved and we move on. Then from that point forward, we keep it down at that level through a process that manages ball and court, okay? And that issues log really helps us do it. Now the issues log is just a spreadsheet, so the spreadsheet itself, again, the tool itself won't get you there. It's how you manage that tool that will get you there. And again, we'll talk more about issues logs in the future. Now, I know you guys are all looking at this and you're saying, hey, where's your PPC and your variance reporting and all that? We're not doing it yet, all right? So this is the first few weeks when we get to the job. And we'll focus here to begin with, then we'll go here next, then we'll go to our PPC and variance log, because if you're going to do PPC and your variance reporting, right, and you're not going to use A3 or Plan, Do, Check, Act, you're not going to put any solid lean processes in place to address the issues that are raised when you collect that data, then all you're doing is putting pressure on the people who are having the hardest time. And putting more pressure on people that are already having a hard time, guys, doesn't work very well. They're already under a lot of stress and they're already freaking out a little bit. So us putting more pressure on them, that's a silly idea that suddenly they're going to get motivated and start managing their company better, okay? So again, please just send me your feedback. I hope this information helps you guys. And you feel free to share it with anybody that you'd like to share it with. It's not proprietary or anything. It's just standard lean stuff. But I really want to hear your feedback because I know, again, that you guys have your own experiences along these lines. So please give me your feedback, and I look forward to hearing from you guys.